All right, everyone. Welcome to the ninth, believe it or not, the ninth panel in the first ever college improv conference. We're going to be talking today about rehearsing, how to prepare to make things up on the spot with no preparation at all. That's what our panel discussion's on the subject of. We have a wonderful moderator for you, and we have four great panelists. I do want to remind everyone that while we're very close to the end of the College Improv Conference, we are not all the way there, not yet. Tomorrow at 4 p.m., we have a final panel discussion on succession planning for your improv college troupe. And, that means looking at how do you keep this thing going after you graduate or after your seniors and your juniors graduate. In any case, that's tomorrow. This is today. I want to live in the present moment. So without further ado, I do want to welcome our wonderful moderator for this panel discussion, New York City improviser and stand-up comedian, Michaela Fagan. Here she is.
I think it's happening. Hello. Hi, everyone. Thank you for having me, Terry. Welcome to this discussion on rehearsing improv, something that we've all probably been asked, how do you rehearse improv and why? And we will answer those questions today. We have a really great panel of some people involved in their college improv teams. We have a social media chair, presidents, vice presidents. So I will have them introduce themselves to all of you right now.
Oh, hello. Hello, everybody. I'm Cade Williams. I am the social media chair for Improv LSU. That's Louisiana State University. I am a third-year member of the club, and I usually, sometimes, well, first year I wasn't like planning any of the rehearsals, but last year I did begin to take up more of an executive role with planning rehearsals and helping lead the troupe through it, everything. And yeah, I've been watching improv for like it's a long time, and so I've been a big fan of the art form for a while.
Excellent. We love an art form reference. Yes.
Hi, my name is Claire. I am in charge of Ohio University's team, Black Sheep Improv. This is my fourth year with the team, my second year helping to run it. And we do long form. We make up formats. We do musicals. We kind of just freeball it, see what's going on. And I'm really happy to be here. Thank you for having me.
Hi, my name is Lauren Stern. I'm a rising senior at Colgate University, and I'm the president of our improv troupe, Charred Goose Beat. We're mainly a short form improv troupe, but we do also do a little bit of long form when we feel like we have the capacity. And yeah, for the last 2 years, kind of helping run it and help foster the group's talent base.
Sweet. We have one more.
Hi.
Yeah.
Hi, my name is Satvik. I'm from Purdue University, part of the Crazy Monkeys improv group, third year member. We do rehearsals. I'm the vice president. And we do rehearsals where we just like practice stuff, mostly short form, the occasional long form. So yeah, good for us.
Very nice. Thanks all for being here. So I feel like doing improv in college, I feel like I spend more time rehearsing improv than going to class. And I would often get the question from family members, friends not in improv, what does it mean to rehearse improv? How are you even rehearsing improv? So how do you answer that question when people ask you like, wait, what are you doing tonight? Why can't you come to the party and have a social life?
I think at least the way I answer it is we don't necessarily, I mean, there's some prompts that like you're gonna get. It's a college audience. Some of them are drunk. So very vulgar things that and can expect from the crowd. But mostly we're just trying to nail down the format, at least for short form. There's at least some key markers that we're trying to get to, or key beats, like, oh, by 30 seconds we should have a character and relationship established so that it's easier for the audience and easier for improvers that may enter the scene. Hey, this is something that I can work with. So it's all about creating milestones and practicing creating those landmarks for improvisers to build off of, because it really is about yes anding. So there should be something to and it's just practicing that aspect of it.
Right, right. Anyone else? Yeah, we talked about formats a little bit. So there are some formulas that you follow, and you have to teach people those formulas. And what about with long form? How do you rehearse long form?
We do some long form. We try to do long form. Usually we'll like halfway through the semester switch to like we'll start out with short form and then go into long because like it's easier for newcomers if we do something like that. But for long form rehearsing it, uh we're all still kind of figuring out like the best way to optimally do it, but it is we'll do a thing. We do a thing called La Ronde. I don't know if that's like a yeah, okay. That seems
Yeah.
notable. But it's like two characters interacting with each other. One character will leave, another character will come in. It circles through about six different characters. One person comes back in at the end and it comes full circle. But we'll do our long forms stuff like that, where maybe like after the first two scenes, we'll stop and we'll pause and then we'll talk about what works, what didn't works, like where is it going? Maybe we'll throw out some ideas, kind of like that. And we'll do that in rehearsal. That way, we can work on things like natural progression and stuff like that, and it'll be a lot more refined whenever we bring it out to an audience.
Mm. This is sounding all very Socratic method to me. Like we sit, we talk about it. Is there anyone like at the helm of the rehearsal? How do you structure the time that you spend rehearsing?
Yeah, so usually it's the president of our club that is leading these, and he w would like stop us and be like, okay, pause. Let's all talk about this, and he would kind of lead the discussion. And if the president is there, it's like the vice president. We have like a chain of command kind of thing, but we do
Yes.
have a designated leader for every one of our rehearsals.
Nice. Like I would always call that a coach. Do you
Yeah.
view them as a coach?
For sure, for sure. The usually like everybody on our team is super talented. But the president, he was our president for the past 2 years, but he graduated last semester. But our new president has been a member of the club for the past four. And she's wonderful. And so yeah, they're very like wise and mindful, and like they're usually like theater majors. I myself am actually not a theater major, but like they're very engaged with the performing arts and everything.
Right. Claire, you lead the rehearsals for your group
Yes.
then as the
Yes.
president. Is there anything that you've maybe seen in the past done at rehearsals that you're like, I'm not going to do that, or like, yes, I'm going to actually try this now? Like, what has been
hmm
your personal flair to leading rehearsals?
We've pretty much kept the same structure since like I started as a freshman on the team. We start with like doing a little sharing circle, which I think keeps the team in touch with each other. And then we try and do like a warm-up game that's like specific to like a skill we need to practice, like listening or saying yes, like just something that's like fun. And then we practice whatever long form show we're going to do. Um, so it's pretty formulaic, but it gets the job done. Um,
Do you
Good.
guys do you guys do a lot of long forms in your things? Is that like a consistent thing, or is it
we're
mainly long form? Or
we perform one game show every year, or sometimes like semester, because we have these HBO Max brand ambassadors on campus, and so they'll like sponsor a show, which is like always like bizarre to like talk about, but they just like give us shirts. But that's the
Yes.
only short form show we do.
Yes.
We're like exclusively long form.
really cool.
I like this sharing circle thing.
Yes.
How much of rehearsal genuinely do you feel like you spend just kind of hanging out, getting to know each other? Like, is that an important part of
Um,
improv rehearsal?
we try to like hang out a lot outside of rehearsal. I like the sharing circles to be brief, because I want us to be productive. But if someone has like a funny excerpt from their day or something, then like, yeah, I want to hear it. And like I think it's important for morale.
Right.
Yeah,
But
I can piggyback off of that because our group also participates in a sharing circle. We do Rosebud Thorn.
yes.
And for us, to be honest, it can really take up like these people, you get them, you give them a pedestal and they'll just go off. So,
Right.
and I personally have like a proclivity to enjoy that time. And also like if you're having a really stressful day, it can be tempting, like let's just chat, you know? But
Yeah.
sometimes when we're getting close to a show or we have something we really need to focus on, I'll be like, you can do one sentence for
Yes.
literally get
Yeah.
one
Yeah.
tight sentence. But I think Claire said it really well. It keeps morale up, it keeps everyone close. And also it just makes it more of a safe, inviting place to be vulnerable in improv throughout practice, which I think is paramount because acting is kind of all about vulnerability. And a big thing I always um condone is your improv is a place where you can express emotions you are too scared to other in other places, like you through these characters. And so I find that the Rosebud Thorn really just gets people into a place where they can like be emotionally available.
Yeah.
Yeah, vulnerability is a huge part of improv, definitely. And that motivation to come to rehearsal is something that, like, even I, at times in college, like, and still to this very day on improv teams, like, struggle with the thought, like, oh my God, I have to go to rehearsal right now. It's always like 9 o'clock at night. I remember rehearsing like in college classrooms, literally breaking
Yes.
into the college classrooms.
Yes.
Where do you rehearse? And what's like the strangest place you've ever been like, this is where we're doing it tonight? This is improv rehearsal tonight.
Well, whenever I started, we had a really big like black box theater that we would rehearse in.
Nice.
There was nobody in there, and it was wonderful. And then the theater college remembered that they had beef with us for a thing that somebody did 5 years ago, and they kicked us out of that. And so now we're in a small, dingy room that looks like it's part of like a Sunday school, like within the college. That's the best way I can describe it. Like all beige walls, beige carpet. And it's kind of sad, but we're gonna try to convince them this semester we're gonna come back to the black box. But sometimes they'll kick us out of both rooms, and that's really lovely because then we just have to opt for plan C, which is actually kind of cool sometimes when it's not hot because we go outside to the Greek amphitheater. If you've ever seen
Whoa.
Perfect before, it's where the riff off was filmed or something like that. It's on LSU campus, and we'll just do rehearsal there.
Wow,
Uh,
in the open air, al fresco.
yeah, and everyone's walking by, and they're like, "What are these insane people doing?"
Oh, you have the added element of perhaps being watched during your rehearsal.
Yeah, watched in like a setting where we're more vulnerable than shows and we're actually just like being wherever and whatever, and just throwing stuff at the wall is actually, I feel like helpful in a way because shows you're putting on kind of a face and you're like centering yourself a little bit for a performance, but just rehearsal and having people like strangers walk by and watch you is very different.
Yeah. Did they
Yeah.
sit and watch?
Some people have. Some people have sat and watched, and we sometimes we'll like stop what we're doing, like, hey, just as an explanation of what's going on. We're an improv troupe.
You may have to explain. That's cool though. That's bringing it way back. I feel like didn't the Greeks invent improv? You're bringing it way back.
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
pretty cool.
for sure.
Anyone else? Where do you rehearse, and have you had environments that are you feel better than others for rehearsal?
I will say we rehearse in like like there's the business building and there's a classroom there. So it's very like standard like open like boxed classroom that we rehearse in. But we have like traditions in our rehearsals. Like we do our check-in, we do our warm-up, then we do the game. And then at the end we participate in a very consensual group activity called Fuck the Room, where we do perform very explicit activities to seating, desks, and things around the room. And it's not like always fucking, it's sometimes talking on the phone, cuddling with the room. And it's just like it's gotten to the point where we've done it so many times and it's like a tradition doing it not in, we just don't do it in any other room. That's the room that's our partner essentially as a group. Our room is our like little sacred haven. It is so weird, but I mean, you can indoctrinate it into anything. Everything's normal. You know what I mean?
And the people that attend that business class have no idea that an improv team just fucked their classroom the night before.
For all we know, they're fucking the room during their classes. Okay, we don't know what they're doing during the business days.
Fair enough. That is in detail of rehearsal. I certainly feel is unique to your team and your
for
school.
Sure.
Does anyone else feel like they have unique things that only they do in improv? We got the rosebud thorn. That's awesome. Sharing circle. Anything more niche that you feel like this works for us and other people should try this at their rehearsal? I'm gonna make my musical improv team fuck the room for sure. What do you think?
My group fuck the room 110%.
What do you think it does? What's the motivation? What's the underlying message that you're trying to impart?
The room looked particularly good that day, and we start. No, but it's just like it's something so dumb and so silly, and honestly, it's very funny to see the creative ways people will like there's your typical like way to do it, and you can go about doing it that way, but like people will have very creative ways from which they will fuck the room. Someone cursed it out, and I'm like, you know what? Whatever floats your boat, man. I mean, fuck you to the room. So.
Sure. So great. A way to we talked about vulnerability was mentioned before. I feel like that's probably a very vulnerable thing, and definitely connects the team together. Like doing something dumb is sometimes the best way to get everyone on the same page and feeling ready to be goofy together. Does anyone else have something their team does that they feel like is something other teams should do, or it's really been successful? No. Okay, that's fine. And anything on the rosebud thorn in that kind of area? Anything else that's not improv that's done in rehearsal?
We do haikus like sometimes instead of like.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
What role does warming up? You come into the room, you connect with each other. Do you warm up before you do improv?
Yeah, we do something called mind melt, which is basically we just all stand in a circle and like two people across the circle get chosen. On the count of three, they both say words, nouns. Yeah. They're very specific instructions. It's to be a noun. It can't have it can't have a hyphen in it, can't be a proper noun. And then we go around the circle and each pair, like next to each other, has to try to find the common ground between the words. And then eventually like the goal is to get to the same word. But it's very fun because you can just say like, for example, like for some reason, we always go down a path of like bureaucracy. And like the words get really niche to government structure, or like some days we're talking about like diseases or medicine or something. And it's just like a fun linguistic warm up. And yeah. And obviously sometimes it gets really sexual.
Yeah, it does.
And you know, like it ends on something heinous, but that's also really fun.
As do most things in college improv.
Yeah. That's like all roads lead.
We play a very similar game, but we call it Group Mind. And unfortunately, it does not have enough rules. And so it's sometimes it'll be like full sentences people are saying, and it's like, is someone else going to say that? No. So let's circle back. But I think playing a game where you're trying to say the same thing as another person is so helpful for getting on the same page later in the practice. So
sure. What do you think are the results of that for the form, whether it's a short form game or long form? What does it set up if you're on the same page?
I think like just being a good partner, like less about like, oh, what am I going to do next, and more about like anticipating what is this other person doing and how can I support that. So it's less about like, oh, what's the funniest word I can say that'll make the group laugh, and more like, let's end the game. Let's like say the same word.
Yeah. Goal oriented. Yeah. You really want to actually accomplish what you said there to do. That's good.
Yeah.
Have you ever had this experience where like something you come up with in rehearsal or a set that you do in rehearsal is so freaking good and you can't recreate it in a show? Like sometimes rehearsal sets are better. Why do you think that is?
I think it honestly comes down to the lack. I think what it really comes down to is you can speak so freely in practice. There's nothing you can say that is too inappropriate, too vulgar, too specific. So when you can literally speak without having to think about who you're performing to, there is so much freedom. Like one time we did this whole long form thing about electric lobsters and their like role in deep intelligence in international espionage. And it was so funny. It was so clever. Everyone was so on the same page and dialed in. But we have trouble recreating those things on
Right.
stage because on stage you are just under pressure. You're thinking about, well, what am I saying? Is this okay? And you start getting really formal about it. When in practice, it's a little bit more hands off, I think, a little more innate.
Yeah.
I
Well, because
think
like, oh, well, like during shows, it's like, okay, I have to make a joke now. Like, I need to hear the audience laugh. And then, like, in practice, it's like, oh, I want my friends to think I'm funny, but like,
Yeah.
that pressure isn't
mhm.
there. So you feel more free, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we make safer jokes like during if we're just going based on like just shows, like we'll make like I think this isn't going well. I'll try to pivot to something that I know will be funny. But in practice, there's nothing, it's all about trying to find what could be funny. So we're a lot more experimental and we take much bolder risks
Yeah.
because there's no like what okay, no one laughs, so what? Like that's not something that's gonna affect anything, right? But like going on to a show, saying something and then having just dead silence, it can sometimes be very disheartening. But
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think you bring up
Right.
a really good point of like in practice, a lot of times like we're all performing, we're all doing a long form together. And so you're not expecting laughs. Or and a lot of times like we're desensitized to what's funny. So a lot of times we're looking at it from a very technical formal aspect. I'm like, that's hilarious, but I'm not laughing. You're not making me laugh
Yeah.
because I'm like locked into like what formally do we need to work on. And so when the currency isn't laughs and the currency is a good scene, you do perform better in improv. But as soon as you turn to laugh dopamine mode, you're
Yeah.
like, I need to make a joke and I need to make it now because the audience is silent and I'm getting sweaty and I invited my boyfriend's fraternity, you know? That's not personally me. I don't want to lay claim to that. That's just an example, but I think there is something about just not looking for laughs.
Yeah, definitely. And there's no real way to recreate that feeling in rehearsal. That's like the one different thing. The audience is the difference. So, do you think that there's a way to rehearse too much or too little? Like in preparation for that, is it all about the show or is it about the rehearsal, like what we do?
I think it kind of depends. We had a phase like 2 years ago. We were rehearsing 5 times a week and then would do a show. Yeah, it was a lot.
A lot.
Yeah.
How?
Yeah, it's like
rough.
It was just I don't know. It was just I think the way the troupe had been doing it forever, it just like everybody became addicted to improv and like we're
That's a
just like, all
full-time
right, this is build
job.
this into my routine. But we moved
I
it down to
think
only 3 days a week and then like one show, which is a lot more manageable. But I think yeah, there definitely is a way to do it too much because we had some people get burnt out because of that, which is why we shortened it. But I think yeah, you can for sure do little because there have been some times where like we have our club that we have like the improv club and it's like 20-30 members and then we have the performance troupe, people who audition to go and actually perform in venues and stuff. And sometimes the performance troupe will not be able to perform each other as much because we're out helping the club and helping other members get better. But whenever it comes time to us to actually pack up and go to a venue with just the 8 of us, then it kind of becomes weird because we actually haven't been in a lot of scenes with each other recently because we're in such this bigger pond and everything. So I think it is difficult, and you kind of like, for us it's a challenge to kind of balance the larger pool with like the smaller one.
I agree, like completely. We have two practices per week before if a show. But it's nice to have because it's trying to find the balance between giving enough space so that you can mull over one practice and be like, hey, what did I do wrong? What did I think wasn't as funny? What do I want to try? And but still having the space to be able to try those things. Because like you can think of a thing that you want to try for a game, but you'll never know how it'll actually land until you actually put it on paper and you actually act it out. And so being able to find that balance is, I think, really crucial. And I agree with that like smaller pond bit because like we have like 9 members right now in the group. We had 13, and not everybody performs with everybody, like trying to get those combinations. So when you're working on even a short form game you've played a lot, it's different with trying to fit with everybody's vibes and everybody's personality and unique like comedic sense of humor, and trying to find that chemistry between you two. Because I mean, like, I think it's fair to say that not everyone's going to be super like have super chemistry with everyone at every given point. So like just trying to be able to rehearse that, like, oh, this is my like this facet works well with this facet of your personality, and trying to work that before the show.
So, Laura, I hate to put you on the spot, but you had written something that I read previously about thinking that rehearsal is a time for everyone to be able to work with each other regardless of chemistry. Do you think that that's true, that you should work through those gaps in
Yeah. I think being so like for me personally, I don't perform super well with all the well, like I can think of people who have come through our troupe where I'm like, I don't want to be stuck on stage with just you and me because we don't do funny together. Like it is just we are so different in terms of way our minds work. But I always urge everyone and like really try to make it a thing of like we're all good. We only have like 10 people in our troupe and we all rehearse and we all perform together. And that's like the only people. And so that's a luxury of ours is that we always get to be together and we always practice and perform together. And so because it's so tight knit, I'm like really passionate that everyone should be able to perform with everyone. Everyone should be able to step out and be like the first person to speak. And that's something that I try to encourage pretty deeply and like put a pretty firm hammer down. Like you got to work through that. It's really uncomfortable when you find yourself in a scene that's going nowhere or have nothing to work off of. And what's your next move? Because you better have a next move kind of thing.
Yeah. Kate, I'm making an assumption that since you are the social media chair, that your organization may be larger than these others. How does it work for you at LSU? Do you shift around teams a lot, based on the success of the rehearsals or the chemistry?
What we usually do, because we really try to champion like inclusion in our club and everything, and try to like make sure everybody's feeling safe and included and stuff like that. And so normally if we have a really large rehearsal, because our rehearsals are all optional, it's like you can come and go as you want kind of thing. If you just want to come and try out the club, you can come for a day and leave for a day kind of thing. But of course, we do have like the core group of everybody that's very dedicated, and that's gotten actually
5 days
very
a week.
large this
Yeah.
past this past year and a half, I'd say. And it's gotten to the point where we would have rehearsals at the end of last semester that was like 20, 25 people in like our
Wow.
small room. So the way that we usually do it is we'll just break people up into teams, like team one, team two, team three, and then like have team one go up and they'll do a short form, and then like team two will go up and do a different type of short form, and then team three will go up and do like a long form, and then we'll all like talk about it at the end. Like, yeah, it's an intensive, complicated process of trying to manage everybody, but it is fun whenever you do get to like experiment with so many people's different like humor styles and stuff like that, from like beginners to veterans and everything. So it's fun in that regard, but it is difficult to manage.
What do you think makes for a successful rehearsal? And have you had any that were absolute train wrecks? And why do you think that is?
I think the worse the rehearsal is before the show, the better the show is gonna be.
100% agree.
Yeah,
Interesting.
like you have a terrible rehearsal, and like that gives me the confidence, and I'm like, I'm gonna kill this show. I'm gonna absolutely eat when I get on that stage, because you work out the kinks. Like that's like the point of a rehearsal. Coming out of rehearsal feeling like this is like, okay, I feel like I got this part down for my game, for my short form game. This part needs a little bit of work, and like genuinely, like the adrenaline, like of being in a show helps so much with the creativity. Like as much as you're like, oh, like I want to make these people laugh, you're also, I fully black out. Like when I go into shows, like I'm just not even like thinking. I'm literally on autopilot. So just having that mindset of being like, okay, these are the things I'm comfortable with. The rest I can just loosely connect, and that's what I think. Like the nature of, I guess, rehearsals have to do with shows.
Yeah, everyone else feels that way too. The worse the rehearsal, the better the show.
Yes.
I think it
Consensus.
depends. Like for us, like we'll make up formats and then we'll have to like learn how to do it. Like we made up this court format last semester, and sometimes I think we like screw ourselves over, like making it a little complicated, and then like learning the format and doing improv on top of that. Sometimes it doesn't, the first rehearsal of that may not go that well, but I think in learning the format for the show, then we're like back on track. But we've definitely had practices where everyone's like just so tired, and like at that point the jokes are just for each other. And like
Yeah.
if someone else saw that rehearsal, it would not be funny, but it's funny to us.
Right. What's the balance between when you say us, I know you mean like the group,
The
and
group. Yeah.
it tends to be that everyone's friends. How do
Yeah.
you adjust to bringing newcomers in to
Yeah.
your troupe? And great question from our audience. How do you retain those newcomers?
Mm-hmm.
Um, how do you keep that consistent coming back?
Well, my group, we do practices are required. And then we perform twice or not twice a week. Oh my gosh, that'd be crazy. We perform every other week. And we always hang out after the show, and
Yeah.
we try to do like bonding activities like outside of that. So, and we have like a group chat, like we stay in touch. But I think being very intentional about making people feel welcome is important, because like when you are like a freshman especially and you're joining this established friend group basically, like that's so intimidating. So I think trying so hard to like hang out outside of rehearsal and like ask like questions about that person and just be so welcoming as you can. I think it's like vital to keeping a group alive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, for
I
us, we have a similar thing. And newcomers can be tough because I think your audition can sometimes feel like your best performance for a whole semester or for a while, where you're like, I peaked. Now I'm part of this group, because when you join all these people that you don't really know, but they all know each other, it feels super clunky. You kind of let the odd man out. That was my experience when I first joined. And so now I'm super intentional with our new members, especially young women, because we have a hard time finding young women to join our group. I don't know if
Yeah.
you have a similar experience. My thing is,
Yeah.
it's a lot easier to convince a 19-year-old boy he's really funny than a 19-year-old girl. And so, or woman. For me, I just like make it an intention to like talk to them directly and get lunch with them or spend time with them, just so they know that they have a friend in me always, and that I care about them and care about their progress and really want them to be here.
Kate, as
I
social
think
media chair. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I was I was just gonna say, I think like at worst we're aiming for, this is like a class you enjoy being a part of. Like
Yeah.
it's a very small select group of kids. We have like our president who's like our coach that we like follow, who's also a peer. So it's like having like a cool teacher, I guess. And having that be like, at worst, you're coming to a class that you at least enjoy being part of. And like we even during like auditions, we're asking people like, hey, like to build group chemistry, we love like hanging out with ourselves outside of like practice times. Are you okay and willing to make that time part of it? Because like having fun with the people is better than just like going out there and having fun. You know what I mean? Like it's much better to be doing improv with a group of friends or people that you like rather than just a bunch of strangers where you're trying to do your own thing. So trying to build that up is definitely very powerful, I think, in a group.
Yeah, the friendship aspect is a huge reason I think a lot of people seek out improv teams and this community. How do you, this is a follow-up question to one before, but also I'm going to spin it a little bit. What is the outreach process like? How do you encourage people to join your troupe and improv in general? What are your selling points?
So, for us, we do a few things. We have a social media, follow us Improv LSU. But we like do stuff on that, and we'll all repost on our stories whenever we're doing something fun. But also, we'll do like table sits and stuff around campus where we'll have like a sign up sheet, and then maybe we'll just like break out and just start doing some short form like right outside of it, just to like draw attention because people look over and like what's going on, and then they see the booth and like, oh, improv. And 99% of people we'll steer away from it. But that 1% is what we care about. And so like that's usually how we do some outreach. And sometimes we'll do like little showcases. I know that the university like a freshmen are getting here right now. It's like welcome week this whole week. And so I think we might be planning on doing a like we're going to do like a little improv showcase like in a room that people can just walk in and see us doing, and we'll have some chairs set up and they can just see us in like a more casual environment trying out some improv, because I know that's how I actually found the club was through like a little showcase for incoming students of like all the different clubs, and then improv was doing like a smaller set.
We've been,
Yeah.
Sorry.
we've been lucky enough the past 2 years that the school's been really supportive. And so they've like asked us to do shows for Welcome Week. And then we also have an involvement fair for everyone on the college green to go and walk around and see what the clubs are. And we just try and like, oh, and we do workshops too at the beginning of the year.
Yeah, this is kind of dicey, but I find that there's a lot of people who really like to watch improv, really like the idea of improv, but don't like the idea of trying out for improv. And so I find that sometimes you gotta really be boots on the ground and do a lot of follow-up with individuals. A lot like, I think you'd be great at it, please come. And that way it's not them in their head saying, oh, I'm not that funny, or I'm not that outgoing, oh, I'm scared to perform. It's someone else saying that instead of the voice inside their head denying it. And that can just be enough to get them their foot in the door. And then once they're there, they realize, oh, this is something I really enjoy. Oh, this is something I'm actually good at. And that has proven very effective, except you are rolling the dice of they might be actually really bad and you might have to cut them, which can also be challenging.
Yeah,
So
with no, please.
I'm so sorry.
No, you go. You talk. I just keep coming up with questions. Keep going. You go.
No, to that vein, a couple of the people that we've had join the club were people like during shows we have like audience volunteers
Yes.
where we like bring them onto stage and they're like obviously like it's random selection, like we pick them and then they come on stage and they're like, I loved being an audience volunteer. I think I want to do this. Like this seems fun. Like this seems like something that I would love to do. So I mean that's also just another way of like, it's not advertising per se. I mean the show itself is a giant advertisement. Please fund us. But like yeah.
No, I have to say that the co-president, that's actually how he joined.
Yeah.
He was just came up one time for a show, and that's the rest is history.
Do you feel like you have people that is there a divide between people doing this for fun and people doing this as like a building block towards a career in comedy? And during rehearsal, yeah, how do you balance that in your group, and how do you balance that in rehearsal? Do you feel it? Do you ever have to tell people to take this seriously?
It's really challenging. We definitely have that divide where people are there kind of as like some people do it as like an outlet, and they are funny and they're great at it, but they don't realize the pure importance to some of the other people in the room. Like I personally, I take it very seriously, as you probably can imagine. And yeah, you have to, I find the best thing to do is just hold them to a high standard. Your attendance is mandatory. Your attendance in the show, and these are the things we're going to do. And I think typically when you make them be serious through like encouragement and support, they get on board pretty quick.
Passion. I think passion, like at least because there's some people in this group that would literally like die for it. And seeing them makes other people who are like, it's like improv. It's like, we're loosey goosey. We're in silly goose town. And it's like, for seeing someone take it so seriously makes me also want to respect them, because like you end up liking these people. That sounds terrible. You like these people, but like you're friends with them and you care about them, and then seeing something that they care about and have so much passion about, you're like, oh, I want to help you do that. I want to help this for us.
I think generally once people see like or like they're in their first show and like it goes really well and it's like, oh, this is what happens when I put this much effort into this, and like people laugh at what I say, and then I think it kind of like fuels that. And, like, we don't have people that aren't as like, we're just like a mixed bag of like majors and everything. We've got some acting people, but we've really found like everyone this year was like, yeah, like when we're all coming to this and putting everything into it, like it's better. So I think getting people to want it through success is like key.
So you got to have some shows. The shows are what makes them realize, oh, people laugh at what I say. I love it. And the practice is important for the shows. And you have this mix of people taking it ultra seriously and people doing it for the passion and the fun of it. How do you find the balance between practice and performance? We talked about your team rehearsing 5 times a week, but those are optional and others mandatory. How do you settle on that ratio?
I think for us, we're really a mixed bag of people who are involved in other extracurriculars and have a lot of other things going on. So what we have done is like we sit down and we make really realistic expectations of what we want. We don't perform very often, our troupe. We rehearse twice a week, but we don't perform that often because we kind of are like a group of attraction, I would say a little bit, where like we really are looking for like a big student turnout in a large audience space. And that's what we focus our goal on. And I think when everyone has the same goal of like, okay, we're gonna be working towards bigger performances, it helps everyone have a North Star a little bit. And so I think that helps. Just basically having a very clear cut expectation of what our end goal is.
I like that a lot, of the idea of everybody kind of centering on a common goal, because I feel like this is like a problem that our troop runs in because it's so big. We kind of get lost in like different goals, because some people's goals, it's like newcomers, they're trying to just get better. They don't care about like bigger performances or anything. They themselves are just trying to improve and become part of the club. And then there's people that are just focused on improving rehearsals. And then there are people that are focused on like, okay, we have these shows, we need to work on these shows, we need to improve these shows, we need to make these shows bigger. And so I think everybody in our troop has different kind of agendas, and that does, I feel like, hinder us a little bit. And it's why it kind of helps to have the bigger group and then the smaller group of just the performers and everything. But yeah, that is definitely something that I'm going to think about more.
I think like for us with two practices, we used to perform once a month. Now we're cutting it down even further. But back then, what we would do is the week of the week of and the week before a show would be like dedicated to show practice. It'd be like deciding which games we want to play, and like getting those down and getting the chemistry to work and trying different things. So that's around like 4 practices that we're just dedicating to shows. Every other practice, either that month or if we have a long extension between shows, is for the people who are just there to like have fun and to mess around and to like, oh, like occasionally we'll have a practice where we're like, we need to work on object work because everybody's just standing there and talking and making witty jokes. So like we'll have an entire practice where we just dedicate to games that really focus on that. But like other times we'll literally waste an entire hour of our time doing a hell form, just because that's just like just getting like I guess fucky with it and just seeing like what it is with improv.
But take one moment to expand on hell form.
Okay. So I will preface we're a very I thought this was much more common than I realized. But essentially what a hell form is it's about an hour of improv where we just take all of our games, all of our short form games, all of our long form games, and we just combine the rules and we just do improv based on one prompt. So we're given like, we take one prompt and then we do an entire scene. And the scene has nothing to do with the suggestion. It is just about how to creatively use the rules to fuck with your scene partners and to just like literally it's genuinely there's no thing that we are ever going to perform it anywhere. We're just trying to be creative, trying to see what rules work well together. Sometimes we get games out of them, which is like that's like once in a blue moon or like even rarer than that honestly, but like it's literally just practicing, doing improv for an exhaustive long time and just trying to make it stay refreshing the entire time. Because there's sometimes like because there's things like, oh, okay, if we need to move on from this beat, there's like 10 different ways to do it. But if we also have to practice staying on a beat, letting it sit. Because like even though there are like 15 different combinations that you can do with the different types of game rules, different types of things that you could add to the scene, sometimes like the bit it needs to take its time and it'll pave out to something a lot better if it's rather than it just being punchy the entire time. So it is very much an exercise of timing and making sure things land when they should and showing restraint when you want to. But ultimately, it is just about remembering the rules, seeing how you can creatively twist them, forcing other people to like swap out of a scene and forcing people to adjust on the fly. So,
And speaking of timing,
Yeah,
we're coming towards the end of our time.
I think we do. I think we have to call it. I think we have to call it. But I think we've discovered something huge at the end of this conversation. And next year, if we do another college improv conference, I don't see that there's much chance that we won't. We'll do a whole panel on L form so that we can really get into it, find out more about it.
Sounds fun.
It's such a funny thing that Sathvik was started off by saying, I thought this was more common. I thought this was I think it's so funny that like no one else has heard about it. This was a wonderful conversation. I want to thank our moderator, Michaela, and I want to thank all of our panelists, Cade, Lauren, Claire, and Sathvik. You did an amazing job for us, talking about your experiences with rehearsing and sharing your perspectives on it. Thank you so much. I'm going to open up the breakout room for all of you to jump into. And for everybody else, I know a lot of people were very excited about the piano music I was playing at the top of the session. I'm going to play it again. And any questions you have about where I found this music or how you could listen to music like this more, please message me directly or call me on my cell phone, 5164. I'm joking. Here we go. Here's the piano music. Head over to that breakout room. Bye, everyone.